There we go. Awesome. So for those of you who do not know me, my name is Dr. Nander Temlong. I am a psychotherapist. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm licensed in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. I'm a change management consultant. I'm an author, and I'm a coach. My doctoral degree is in organizational leadership. I have gone through different types of transitions in my life, had to navigate different types of changes and transitions, and had to work through the shifts that come with change and transition. And that is why I'm also very passionate about helping multifaceted executive women navigate change and transition with confidence and help them to identify their limiting beliefs and mindset patterns that are holding them back from their purpose. I Fun fact about me is that I love waterfalls. I like lakes and any body of water. You can find me wherever there that is. So that's a little fun fact about me. I'm just going to go through the order of today. The agenda of today is just the welcome, which has started, just the intent for today. What we're going to cover today is how to communicate your value with confidence and how to leverage relationships and resources. We're also going to go into a little bit of an activity after that, and then we will have like a few questions and just a few of an announcements, and then we will go into the closing. So I'm going to stop sharing for right now so I can introduce who my speakers are to you all. Okay. So today we have two amazing speakers that I'm honored to be here with us today. We have Dr. Nami Temlong, who's also my sister, is the founder of Leaders Well, a holistic leadership development and strategic communication company. She empowers leaders to communicate vision and authority. She leads with confidence. She builds strong and connected teams, and she multiplies their impact through transformative, purpose-driven communities. Dr. Nangi combines strategies, leadership training, and spiritual grounding to help her clients find their purpose, amplify their voice, and create cohesive teams. So welcome, Dr. Nangi, to this workshop right now. So welcome. We also have Ron Raymond, who is a technology and business strategist with over a decade of experience in enterprise sales and SaaS consulting. He has helped Fortune 500 and mid-market organizations modernize operations, scale revenue, and align technology with strategic growth. He is the co-founder of Blue Capital Consulting, an investment and advisory firm focused on business development and long-term value creation, and the founder of Leaders Exchange Global, a platform that empowers emerging leaders to build wealth, steward influence, and create lasting impact. Drawing from faith, discipline, and lived experience, Ron teaches professionals to leverage relational equity, navigate corporate systems, and turn setbacks into strategic opportunities. So please welcome with me Nini and Ron today, who will be going over some of the information. Welcome. So let's start with, we're going to have Nini start off, and then we will switch over to Ron.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Dr. Nander, for this opportunity. And we are among family, right? So, just, say hi, put a thumbs up, how we feeling? Like, just put a thumbs up in the chat. Are we good? Everybody good? All right, I see familiar faces here. Hi, Z. Hi, Jojo. Hi, Ursula. Hi, Jesse. All right, so let's get right into the content for today. As Dr. Nander mentioned, I empower leaders to communicate their vision clearly, right? It's a passion of mine. I have just a little bit about my journey. I've been just on this trajectory of leadership for a couple decades now. I've been a distinguished Toastmaster. I've worked with the Daniel Leadership Institute. I've worked with John Maxwell leadership coaching and development sessions, and I've taken, additional trainings and coaching. But my passion really is with effective communication, like learning how to communicate your ideas with confidence, speaking, just, taking your ideas from just the thought stage to effectively communicating that to whoever that audience is. So before I get into the content, I want you to just write a couple questions down. We'll kind of revisit this at the end. But the first question that I would like you to answer is, who are you? The next question is, what do you do? The third question is, who do you help? The fourth question is, what problem do you solve? And then the next question is, why does it matter? And then the last question for now is, what are you asking of the hearer? Right? So I hope we caught that. I'm just going to run through it really quickly just to make sure that everybody captured. Who are you? What do you do? Who do you help? What problem do you solve? Why does it matter? And what are you asking of the hearer? All right, so let me just go right into the content. So today I'm going to be speaking on communicating your ideas with confidence. And I'll start by saying, great communication is not simply about talking. I mean, all of us here can talk, but it's about transferring your beliefs. It's about taking your great ideas and turning them into reality by carrying them through communication, clarity, confidence. So studies in the workplace psychology shows that 70 to 85% of professional success is attributed to communication skills. Believe it or not, I'm pretty sure most of you can, relate to this, that sometimes in the workplace, it's not the smartest people that are in leadership, but it's the people that can communicate with confidence, right? A podcast called The Alpha Mind states that we decide how confident a person is within the first 200 milliseconds of hearing them speak, right? And so, literally, just as simple as someone saying hi, you can tell how confident a person is by just hearing them speak. So, confidence in communication is the difference between an idea that stays in your mind, in your notebook, and an idea that becomes a movement, right? So every leader, every entrepreneur, every innovator, every change maker, they must master the ability to express their thoughts clearly, persuasively, and confidently. So I want you to just repeat this in your mind. Confidence is not arrogance. Confidence is clarity about what you carry. So today I just want to walk through like three keys to communicating your ideas with confidence. So number one, get clear. Like when you're about to communicate your idea, whether it's like in a professional setting, personal setting, business setting, workplace, be very clear about what you're trying to communicate. It's easy to communicate with authority once you're clear. So many people struggle with communicating because they're still in the forming phase, right? They're still trying to figure out in their mind like what they want to speak. But before you speak, you should be very crystal clear about what you're trying to say, right? So ask yourself three questions, just like we talked about, like what problem is this that I'm trying to solve? How am I trying to, convey this idea? Like why does it matter? And what outcome am I looking for? Like what do you want the listeners to gain when you communicate that idea? Right. And a lot of thoughts or a lot of things, limiting beliefs that hold people back is, you know, like, would this change anything? Would people listen to me? And I feel like that's something that we need to overcome as effective leaders and effective communicators, right? What will it change? An example, like this community lacks accessibility to mentorship for young women. The solution, we're launching a leadership mentorship program. What is the impact? The program will equip the next generation of women to lead in business, government, and society. So your thoughts should be super clear. And I want you to think of this formula: problem, solution, impact. Think in that in this three steps for a formula: problem, solution, impact. The next key is own the value of your voice, right? So many brilliant people struggle to communicate their ideas because of internal doubt. Like I was stating earlier, like, what if my idea is not good enough? What if people disagree? What if I'm wrong? But confidence grows when you recognize your perspective, like the perspective of the value that you bring, right? So every leader in history had moments where, they questioned their ideas, they questioned their confidence. Like, does it matter? Does it make an impact? But confidence means that you believe enough in your idea to express it clearly, right? So just think about it. The voices that you carry in your head, you have to start with those voices in your head by saying, I carry value. My thoughts matter, my ideas matter, right? I deserve to be in this space. Many leaders wait for permission before speaking. But I can tell you, confident communicators understand that they do not need permission to contribute their value, right? Like a lot of times, again, I always reference the workplace because in my background working as a product director in government contracting, I see this a lot. Like the people that usually contribute to, meetings or, a conversation, again, they're not necessarily the technical people that are working behind the scenes, but they're leaders that are communicating their ideas effectively, that feel like they don't need permission to express an idea or to contribute to a particular space or could contribute value, right? So that's something that we have to start. It starts in the mind. Like you have to literally silence those negative voices and silence those limiting beliefs that tell you that your voice doesn't matter. You have to start by being confident in the value that you carry, right? And I want to say this, right? Like your voice carries experience, like the experience that you have in every space. No one in that room has lived your journey. So your experience gives you that unique insight, right? So when you're expressing yourself, you're coming from a place of conviction, you're coming from a place of confidence, and it is, your lived experience, right? Whether it's you going to school to get that degree, that knowledge base, whether it's the experience in the community programs that you serve, or just in your journey in life as a whole, your voice carries experience. So that should also give you confidence when you're expressing yourself. All right. And then the next thing is progress matters more than perfection. You do not need to express your ideas perfectly. You just need to express them clearly enough for others to understand. And I think that that's another thing that kind of holds people back is they feel like it has to be perfect. I have to say it perfectly. It has to sound perfectly. I have to structure it in a certain way. But no, progress matters more than perfection. So express yourself, clearly express your thoughts. Confidence grows through practice and not perfection. So as you keep expressing, as you find yourself in different spaces, as you network, just being able to articulate yourself and express your thoughts is better than being perfect, right? So the more you communicate, the stronger your voice becomes. And then the next key that I want to share with you is deliver with presence and conviction. So communication is not just about words, it's also about your presence. I don't know if any one of you, I don't know if people listen to the news these days because, it's a lot that's going on, but there was a lady who literally worked in a department store for about 7 months. And literally, she just walked in there and gave herself a title. First of all, she went to like a local store, created a badge, right? Gave herself a title like director of sales or something like that. And she just walked into a department store and started, telling everybody what to do. Now, the interesting thing is that nobody thought to stop her, not the managers at the store, not the security guards, nobody, because she literally just walked in and said she's the director. And then she had a headpiece and she would literally pretend like she's talking to corporate and she would say, do this, and literally be bossing everybody around. She did that for 7 months and she got away with it. She got free groceries. She bought a lot of things. Like it took 7 months. Now, the one thing that I have to give her is her confidence. She walked in there with so much confidence that nobody could stop her. And this is someone who did it from a negative perspective, right? Fraudulently. How much more you that carries value, right? So confidence is everything. Confidence is your posture. Confidence is clarity. Confidence is your voice, right? You carry yourself in places and, basically influence the people that you're passing that message to. So stand upright, right? Maintain that posture. Maintain eye contact because that shows confidence. Speak with intentional pauses. Now, in Toastmasters, if you took the Toastmaster journey, they talk about filler words, right? And a lot of times filler words come from a place of basically trying to fill in. silent pauses because people get uncomfortable with silent pauses. But part of speaking too also means speak with intentional pauses. Give people time to ingest what you're saying. And just know that your message matters, right? So your voice carries conviction. Keep your message simple. Speak with confidence. So I just want to give you a framework that you can take with you as you move along. Let's start with the word confident, and I'll give you the meaning of each word. So C stands for clarity, which means know your message before you speak. And it goes back to preparing. It goes back to silencing those limiting beliefs and believing that your voice carries value. O is for organization. Structure your ideas, right? Where you want to do them logically. You want to go, from point A to point B. Structure what it is that you're trying to say. It's really key. N stands for need. Explain the problem that your idea addresses. Whether this is business, whether it's a nonprofit, whether it's serving ministry, there's a need. And so you're conveying what problem your idea addresses. F is for focus. Communicate one core message. Sometimes I've seen this with leaders when they're communicating effectively or learning to communicate effectively, is that they have so many ideas. And so when you ramble trying to figure out what idea do I want to share, sometimes that can create confusion. But be laser focused on one core message. And then over time, you can eventually share everything else that you're working with or dealing with. I stands for impact. Show how the idea changes something, right? So, of course, again, we talked about your experiences, your lived experiences as you're serving, as you're working, as you're going through business and everything else that you're doing. Those small wins, you can share those small wins. This is what I've been able to do. And again, remove that perfectionist mindset. You don't have to cater to 10,000 people. Just talk about that one person, right? So show how the idea changed something. D stands for delivery. Again, we talked about confidence. So that's your posture, that's your tone, that's your presence. I don't know if you've been in networking spaces where you're saying hi to someone, and first of all, they're looking down as they're saying hi to you. That's one. But two, I don't know if you've seen this. It's a bit of a pet peeve of mine. Like when people shake your hands and they literally just hold like the tips of your finger, like that shows, like you're timid. Like the first question is, do you really want to be in this space? Like, how do you want people to hear you if you don't show up, confident? So that's everything. That's your posture. That's your tone. That's your confidence, right? E stands for engagement. Invite others into the conversation. And we'll kind of talk about this, later as we go through the activity. But, when you're engaging with people, what is it that you're expecting from them, right? So invite them into the conversation, based off of what you want from them. N is for narrative. Stories make ideas memorable. Like I said, no one has lived your personal experience. So when you talk from a place of conviction, when you talk about personal experiences, it sheds more light and it lets people know that, you're a subject matter expert at that particular thing, or, you're an authority that can speak on something because it is your lived experience. So any stories, any examples, any wins that you could share, make sure that your stories make your ideas memorable. And then the last thing is trust. Believe in the value of your message. You believe in it so much that you literally convey that message to others, and then people start to buy into that, right? So I'm going to wrap up with this. The world is not changed only by people with ideas. It's changed by people who can communicate their ideas with confidence. Your voice has the ability to inspire change, influence decisions, shape culture, open doors, or transform communities. But ideas only gain power when they are expressed clearly and courageously. So remember this. Confidence in communication is not about being the loudest person in the room. It is about being the person that has the clearest voice in the room. So when your thoughts are clear, your belief is strong. When your belief is strong, your delivery carries conviction. And then your ideas will not just be heard, they will be felt, they will be remembered, and they will be acted upon. All right. This ends my session, and I will hand it over to Ron Raymond.
Wow, that was powerful. And I think, when we're thinking about communication and how we communicate effectively, kind of just transition into where we are today when we're talking about, mastering your network and relationships. The one thing that I think about in my journey, is I was talking to my pastor one day, and my pastor had, we're talking about just different relationships and different things that I was going through. And she had said to me that, when God is ready to transform and implement new things in your life, He will start to place relationships around you, that will allow you to walk through certain doors that may have never been there prior. And I had to think about that kind of internally, just because, I was thinking about the relationships around myself and how I've communicated with them and what I've done. And I was thinking about how certain doors have opened up. So if you want to just take a second, I know that Dr. Tim Long had just went through the process of communication, but just take about, 30 seconds. Think about where you are today because you planted seeds from the past that have allowed you to be here today. But think about the relationships that has helped you, get to a job opening, helped you with a job, with a college application, help you with just, entering this Zoom virtual room. What relationships has cultivated you to be here today? So take 30 seconds, think about that, and write some of those names down. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes we think about relationships of being in communication or being in the same circle of a big VP or a CEO, but sometimes those necessary relationships are right in front of us. And while you're thinking about those relationships, think about the impact that those relationship has made on you, and also because relationships are two-way streets, the impact you've made on them. All right. So when we talk about relationships, I look at relationships and building networks, and relationships could be used in a form of an asset. So when you buy a house, when you invest in the stocks, we consider those financial assets. And typically when you buy a house, you want to leverage that house for financial gains in the future, whether that's putting your kids through school, using the equity on that home to buy another home, or your investments. You could pass that on to your kids and family members, or leverage a loan against those assets or against those stocks that you've purchased, and go from there. But relationships and networking also build social capital, right? And social capital to me is just as equivalent as financial capital. Because without social capital, without those relationships that you bear, yeah, it's kind of hard for you to tap into those inner circles that's going to allow you to enjoy some of the fruits of your life. Dr. Tim Long stated that some of the leaders that's placed into some of these positions are not necessarily built on their experience or what they've done, but they're built on communication. But that communication piece also led to them opening up relationships because they walked into that room with confidence and they built relationships on there. For me today, I'm going to identify about 6 to 7 key points on how to identify the relationships to help, um, catapult where we are today to go forward. As Nander Temlong has stated, that I am a co-founder of a company called Blue Capital. It was called Blue Capital Investments. Now it's called Blue Capital Consulting. And I'll give a short story about that. So the inception of that company was in 2021. And we had bought our first investment property and we were going through and we're trying to figure out what our next line of business was. And then I went to my mentor. My mentor owns a subcontracting company in Maryland that is doing extremely well. And I had asked my mentor, I said, I'm having some issues with my partner and some of the things that I'm going through. And he looked at me and he said, well, why did you pick your partner? Why is that the person that you are partnering with to go to do business with? And he said to me, he was like, when you're picking a partner, when you're picking certain people to be part of your circle, part of your journey, you're not picking individuals because you're best friends. You're picking individuals because they have something to add or value that you want to gain from them that allows you to manifest in the things that you're trying to do. So if your business partner is frustrating, you need to identify and align what it is that you want to get out of him. What are the strengths and weaknesses that that person may provide that allows you to go from point A to point B? And I had to think about that because at some point, Blue Capital Consulting was a failing business, and I had to reevaluate that partnership. Unfortunately, that partnership is still intact, and 5 years later, we're able to kind of go through and make things happen. So, key point number one in building a relationship is networking and relationship mastery. So, what does that really mean? In short, simple words, it's not about collecting contacts. Like when you walk into a room and people say, I want to network, you ask for somebody's business card and you're trying to identify who's the best person. It's not really about collecting business card, collecting contacts, but it's really about um, building equity and building trust with that individual and building value. How are you building value from your personal self to that other individual that you may think may benefit you down the line? And most times we get into a rut when we go into a networking situation. Sometimes we may be shy. I know I'm an introvert by heart. I'm an introvert automatically. And when I go into a networking event, I have to scour the room before I engage. And sometimes that's a downfall of mine where in my early years, especially being in sales, you have to bring the extrovert out and you have to be able to show value immediately when you're in those rooms because sometimes you just have that one opportunity to make an impression on somebody. And if you're not making the right impression on that individual, you may lose out on that opportunity. And sometimes, you hear about the elevator pitch. That elevator pitch might be 30 seconds. It might be a 25-second window. Granted, that person might connect with you on LinkedIn. They might exchange social media information with you, contact with you, but and that person might be somebody in a high level or in a place that you want to network with. But if you're not showing that you're reliable, if you're not showing that you're valuable, if you're not going into that networking event with confidence and communicating effectively, sometimes we get lost in the sauce. Now, how to network with intention. Again, networking and communication, as Dr. Temlong has stated earlier, is, we have to set clear goals about what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do things. What is it that we're trying to get out of it? So when you're networking, and you're introducing yourself, it's some of the, they say 90% of communication is body language and nonverbal communication. That's not the nonverbal communication piece. So how's your handshake? How's your eye contact right now? Like even in a Zoom room, and I'm not coming at anybody that has their cameras off. It's Saturday. I know that we're there, but I was taught, when I'm communicating with C-level executives and I'm trying to help them map out a session for their software and strategic implementation for 2, 3 years, and we're on Zoom, we don't have that personal feel. So the camera eye contact is definitely something that's there, and because that's body language that's being read throughout those rooms. So network with intention is how well are you prepared to communicate your intentions, what your wants are, and what you're trying to fulfill, and what you bring to the table. But a lot of that also has to do with your body language. A lot of it has to do with your tone of voice, with your eye contact, with your handshake, and honestly, how we dress and how we present ourselves. I think that's kind of straightforward, but it's 2026, and depending on which age demographic you are, dictates, what you believe in and whatnot. Accessing the right rooms. And I think this is major here because sometimes we'll see an event on LinkedIn or on social media, and we want to go to that event because we think those individuals with the right titles are going to be there. And I want you to think about a room not necessarily in the four squares that you're in right now, and the four walls that you're in right now. Think about that room from an expanded perspective that is more in an intellectual room of the people that you've met over the course of time. And sometimes the individuals that you need to network with is in your inner circle. And I'll go back to my pastor. So I was flying from Atlanta last year, 2025. And as I was flying back from Atlanta, I had got bumped up to first class. Now, here's a lady that comes in with a hoodie on, Crocs, and just kind of to herself. And I always say like, man, why I gotta sit next to to somebody that I can't have a conversation with? I know most of y'all been on planes, and sometimes whether you're in the middle seat or on the aisle or window seat, and you just kind of sit next to somebody you got and from your perspective, you probably have nothing in common from your perspective. And here I am. I'm listening to my music and whatnot. She asks me for a charger because her phone was dying. And again, I'm not paying attention to this person because she doesn't fit my type of person that I think that I would speak to because of a physical appearance. And as the plane ride, as we're about to descend and finally some conversation happened between her and I, ironically, fast forward, this happens to be the lead pastor of the church I now attend. And automatically, I was judging that book by its cover based on how it looked and based on the conversation that I thought we could not have. But fast forward, that access to having access to the lead pastor is one of the only reasons why I'm able to speak to you today because that gave me access to Dr. Nander Temlong. Because fast forward, I was able to sit, next to Nanny and Nander in that sermon when I actually attended that church, and that created these relationships that I'm having today. I only use that story to just say sometimes the relationships that we are looking for are right in front of us. And accessing the right rooms is not necessarily about the physical space that you go to, but more importantly, it's about the space that you place in your head when you're interacting with individuals. And that could be skin color, that could be race, that could be age, because we could learn something from everybody, from anybody, and we could always gain from somebody. But it's also about mindset. So, obviously on this sheet of paper, I'm going to tell you to join community boards. I'm going to tell you to join leadership roles, gain access, host your own gatherings, do something to the extent what Dr. Temlong is doing. Host your own events, do something. But realistically, when I think about how to access the right rooms, sometimes the right room is right next to us, and we don't necessarily know that. The fifth one I would say is building social capital. Again, I have an investment company, so when the market is up, I'm doing very good. When the market is down, I'm doing very good. And that's a financial capacity of things. And I think everybody could relate to that. When you get paid and that bank account is full and you have enough money to pay your bills and still have enough money to go out for the movies on a Saturday night, you're in a joyous place. But relate that financial mindset to social capital. When you have or the right network around you, that builds your confidence as well. Now that I have access to my lead pastor, Michelle Jackson, Mind you, within that congregation, there's access to doctors, lawyers, astronauts, people working in corporate America, C-level executives. In that one conversation on that plane, my social capital multiplied because I was able to just communicate with her and go to that, obviously go to her church, but more importantly, network within that room, where relationships that I thought I probably would never be able to have are happening because I'm able to connect. So social capital to me is is just as important as financial capital. And I don't think you could have one without the other. Because the person that has a lot of money, financial capital, and doesn't have any social capital is probably a miserable person. And the person that doesn't have any social capital is kind of the vice versa thing, right? So social capital to me is just as important or maybe as equivalent to having financial capital. So um, but at the same time, I always go back to stating that relationships are two-way streets, right? It's not about what you need and what you want. Sometimes it's about what you can offer somebody. And what you may offer somebody in the moment may not necessarily seem as a big thing, but years later, months later, days later, could be something, they could give you something that you probably was never expecting from that situation. Evaluating your relationships. I think that's very important. Think about the question I had asked you earlier. There's probably individuals on that list that helped you get that job, that helped you with your college application, that help you get, help you build your resume. You may or may not speak to that person today because that person, you may have outgrown that person may have outgrown you. But it's always just like everything in life, we have to do evaluations on our finances. We have to do evaluations on the job that we're at, on where we're trying to go in life, and readjust our short-term, intermediate, and long-term goals. But relationships are in the same category. If you're not re-evaluating your relationships, how are you fine-tuning your circle? How are you getting from point A to point B with the same relationship that you had 20 years ago? That relationship 20 years ago may be beneficial from a friendship perspective or from a family member perspective, but is that relationship helping you catapult to the next level in your career, entrepreneurship, or wherever you're trying to go? So I would say evaluate your relationships at all times. I have a group chat that I'm in. It's a we host every Saturday at 11 a.m. and we talk about the financial markets and the stock market and all that stuff. And every so often, the leader of that chat will say he's doing house cleaning. And I'm like, what do you mean? The first time he did that, I'm like, what do you mean? He's just like, well, I'm going to clean the house because those who are not participating are not adding to this chat. And even though it's a small, simple gesture, it's about 20 of us in that chat. But every quarter or so, he'll go through and wipe out or delete anybody that's not partaking because they bring no value to the chat. And this is a group chat that's virtual. So when he was doing that, I realized something that, man, that's very impactful to how we must look at our relationships. If that person is not adding value, if that person is not bringing something to the table, then why are we here? Is it for, can I speak? Is it for shits and giggles? Sorry, I know I'm not supposed to use that type of language, but is it for that particular reason? Or is it for something that's beneficial? And it's okay to cut ties and it's okay to place relationships in certain boxes, but I think that's also important, evaluating your relationships. Now, lead with love. The leadership principle of love. I'm in the process of writing a book, and in the book that I'm writing, one of the chapters that I've been stuck on is love. And sometimes we may look at love um from a romantic standpoint, from a I love my family, I love my daughter, I love my son, I love my mom, I love my dad. But love is how we interact with each other on a day-to-day basis. This morning when we hopped on the Zoom call, if you said good morning or if you waved your hand or gave a thumbs up, that's a sign of love. That's a sign of respect because that's love that's building, but that carries with you on a day-to-day basis. So when you're leading with love, it opens up so many different rooms. I know my time is short, so I'm gonna talk about love from this perspective. The same person who I said was leading the group chat that I was in on the Saturday morning meetings, he had helped me basically last year earn my biggest. I think we made about 85% on one particular stock trade that we made, and he helped out. And I talked to my business partner and I said, listen, it's as much as enjoyed him helping us, and obviously we made 85% of profit, we should give back. And and he didn't know this, I literally just took, $1,000 and I basically sent it to him via Zelle. And that gesture, that gesture of sending him cash and doing that with out of love has created a loyalty from him that I could never probably get from any type of financial compensation that he could give. And the reason for that is because ever since that day, he has helped tremendously with the infrastructure of how we think about trading and investments today. So I encourage you to lead with love in all of your relationships because you never know who you're giving a nugget to and who you're helping out from that perspective. And lastly, be uncomfortable to be comfortable. If you're comfortable right now on this Zoom room, you're probably not in the right place. But if you're uncomfortable because you're getting new information, if you're uncomfortable because you're going to a networking event, if you're uncomfortable because you're meeting new people, if you're uncomfortable communicating effectively, you're doing the right things. You're on the right path. Because even right now that I sit, my armpits are sweating, my forehead is sweating because I'm uncomfortable giving this presentation. And believe it or not, this is my second time doing a speaking engagement of what I've gained over the last 12 years. But being uncomfortable allows you to be in a place that gets you from point A to point B because even in scripture, God has always placed individuals in uncomfortable situations to get from one place to another. And I just want to end with that. Out of everything that you heard today, you know, social capital, lead with love, all of the above, none of those things matter if you're not uncomfortable to do them.
Thank you for that. That was amazing. So before we move on, I just want to have a little check-in in the chat room. How are you all doing? Give me an emoji, give me a word in the chat just to check in. Just let me know how you all are doing. Is this landing? How are you feeling? Are we uncomfortable? Are we comfortable that need to get uncomfortable? Good, good.
Can I
Awesome.
get a paper towel? I'll be right back. I'll be right back.
That's awesome. Okay. So we're going to move into our activity right now. And this is where you have to be intentional about taking that bold risk and be uncomfortable. This is that point right now. So I'm going to hand it over to Nangi so she can lead us in that.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Nander. So, Ron, that was an amazing session. Thank you for that. So, I had you guys write down some questions at the very beginning, right? And we're going to go into an activity. So, again, everything Ron just talked about, everything that I've spoken about, this is your opportunity to put that into action, right? We're going to practice an elevator pitch. Okay, I'm pretty sure we've heard elevator pitches, throughout our lives, our careers. Let me just explain. An elevator pitch is a brief and intentional introduction that helps someone to quickly understand who you are, what you do, why it matters, what are you looking for from them, right? And what you're looking for from them. It's not just about sharing information, it's about helping the listener to know how they can respond, right? So we talked about those initial questions. And if you're just joining, I'm going to go through that really quickly. Who are you? What do you do? Who do you help? What problem do you solve? Why does it matter? And what are you asking of the hearer, right? I just want to take that a step further to say when you're speaking to someone, it's very important to be clear about what you want. Are you speaking to just inform them? Are you speaking because you're asking for support? Are you speaking because you're asking or looking for advice? Or are you trying to make a connection, a partnership? Are you looking for an opportunity or even an investment, right? So it's very important to be clear because that helps you to shape your pitch. So I'm going to give you examples and I'm going to look for bold people that are willing to be uncomfortable to be comfortable, right? So, a couple of people who can share, would be very helpful. So I'll give you an example. Again, just a simple way to build your pitch. My name is Dash. I help by dash so that, right? So today I'm looking to fill in the blank. So let me give you true examples. Hi, my name is Sarah, and I help small business owners grow their visibility through branding and marketing support so that they can attract more customers with confidence. Today, I'm looking to connect with business owners who want to strengthen their brand, right? Very clear, very concise. It's literally like two sentences, two and a half sentences. I'll give you another example. Hi, I'm James, and I help organizations improve operations by aligning teams, systems, and strategies so that they can execute more effectively. Right now, I'm looking to connect with leaders who need help improving initiatives to move forward, important initiatives to move forward. That's another example, right? So I think we're kind of getting the gist here, like your name, who you are, what do you do, what do you solve, what are you looking for from the person that you are speaking to. I'll give you one last example before we get bold volunteers to share. My name is Linda. I help women rebuild confidence after major life transitions through coaching and support so that they can move forward with clarity and purpose. Today, I'm looking to build partnerships with organizations that support women's development, right? So again, you're clear, you're concise. This should be an elevator pitch is typically 2 minutes, 3 minutes max, right? And because again, whoever it is that you're talking to, you could meet them in an elevator, literally, or you can meet them, on the street or in a bar. Like again, one thing about successful, busy people is they don't really have a lot of time. So if you literally have just about a minute or two to get your point across, you want to be clear and concise. All right. So with all that being said, does anybody want to take a stab at an elevator pitch to share what they have come up with from these questions or just from what you've heard from myself and Ron or anything about your business, about, work, career, serving, ministry, anything. You could even be a stay-at-home mom that is catering to the needs of people or serving in your local church or local community. You can talk about it from that perspective. I know a lot of things I shared is really from a business perspective, but you can also literally just be a regular everyday person, a school student, right? Again, school students that's looking for internships, there's so many scenarios here. Like you could be a student looking for an internship. You could be a stay-at-home mom that's looking for support for your kids. You could be someone who's just trying to get back into the workforce after taking a gap. Again, multiple scenarios. So does anybody want to volunteer to just share their pitch? Come on, people, step out boldly. It's okay to be uncomfortable.
You don't got to be perfect
I
either.
can try. I
Go
haven't yet
ahead,
finished, but
Zwei.
I'll just I'll just go for it.
Okay.
Okay. So I am Zamaye, a creative individual who helps people gain insights on their path to total well-being. I use creative tools and uh, help people feel heard and seen so that they have a sense of belonging that brings them towards uh, better health. Um, I'm here today because I am curious about the resources and the things that other people are doing to help them on their path and journey to better success, well-being.
Awesome. Awesome. Please, round of applause for Zamai. That was really good. That was really good. You should be proud for stepping out boldly. Yeah, so again, everything in your pitch was super clear. Again, who are you, right? What do you do? What problem are you trying to solve? And what is it that you're looking for in that space or in this space, right? And you were very clear about that. So somebody could say, "Oh, wow, I know someone who's doing something similar. I'm doing something like that. You know what? I can share some strategies with you." So again, in your pitch, you are looking to inform and pretty much looking for additional information, right? Additional information, advice, resources, things of that sort. So that's really good. Awesome. Anybody else? That was really good. Anybody else? Don't let me call randomly, folks.
Okay,
Oh, go ahead.
let me try. Good
Yay.
evening, everyone.
Awesome. Go ahead.
Okay, so my name is Joanna Temlong. I train teachers and school leaders with the necessary skills to equip them. Sorry, let me start again. Let me go again.
Okay.
So my name is Joanna Temlong. I train teachers and school leaders with the necessary skills to transform their classrooms and their organizations, particularly in Nigeria and in Africa. And I am looking to partner with organizations that key into this vision to either sponsor teachers from low income communities that may not be able to invest in the trainings or or to also partner with organizations that are willing to invest in their teachers and their personnel. That was a bit long-winded, so I just did it off the cuff. I did it off the
No,
cuff.
but that was good. That was good. That was good, Joanna. That was
So
really
I was
good.
like, wow, I need to work on that. But yeah.
Right. No, I applaud you. Please, round of applause for Joanna. That was really good. That was really good. Again, it's not about perfection, right? It's about just taking a bold step to convey what you're thinking with confidence. So, again, she stated who she is, what she does, what problem she solves, why it matters, and then what she's looking for, like in this space. So, again, you guys can also provide feedback, right? As you're hearing this, now you're going to start to fine tune, you're hearing, like if you're in networking sessions or if you're with people that are talking about their pitches, you can always hear, okay, was that clear? Did they say who they are? Did they say what they're looking for? Did they, what are they looking for from the hearers and things of that sort? So that's really, really good. And again, it comes with practice too, right? Like again, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Put yourself in different scenarios, put yourself in different spaces. If you met a multi-billionaire today, and the person was giving out money to people who came with perfect pitches, what would yours sound like? Right? So just because you never know. You really, like Ron mentioned, you never know. It might look like an everyday person, but it could be the next key or the next connection or the next, destiny helper to that next phase, right? All right, Tiffany, I think I saw you trying to, volunteer as well.
Sure, yes. Okay, here I go. I am Tiffany Wise, a public health professional who implements evidence-based programs for women and children who need critical resources to live and thrive. And I am looking to partner with organizations who want to change their communities for the better.
Okay, awesome. Please, round of applause for Tiffany. That was good. That was really good, Tiffany. Again, was it clear? Yes. Did she state who she was, what she does, why it matters, and what she's looking for? Very clear, right? So as you start to listen, you could start to ask questions like, was it clear? Did it sound confident? Another good way could be standing in front of a mirror and practicing your pitch. Another thing you could also do is record yourself and play it back, right? Like if you were the person listening, if you were on the opposite side, was it clear? Was it confident? Did I understand what they do? Did I understand how or who they help? And is it clear what they want from me? Is it clear what they want from the audience, right? So again, elevator pitches are not supposed to be perfect. It just needs to be clear, intentional, and authentic, which I think everyone who has volunteered has been. So thank you so very much. That was really, really good. Thank you. I'll hand it back to you, Dr. Nander.
Wow, I don't know about you all, but even though I've heard some of this thing, it's very refreshing. It feels like I can refine, retune, and just be more intentional about presenting myself and communicating confidently, which is very important in this space, in this time, and for the very important work that you all are doing. So we have a few questions for our speakers, and just in the interest of time, I'm just gonna have maybe if you have any questions, please put it in the chat, but I'm just going to ask them one question each where they can just share. All right, let me add. All right, awesome. So in the interest of time, if you can answer these questions in like about a quick minute or so, that would be helpful. All right, I'm gonna start with you, Nangi. Dr. Nangi, you're known for helping leaders articulate their identity and calling with clarity. What's one moment in your journey where you struggled to communicate your vision, and how did you overcome that barrier?
Thank you, Dr. Nander. So yes, I think in my journey, I carried a strong vision. I think I always knew that, you know, God had blessed me with a vision, like from a very young age. I kind of knew I had the mantle of leadership, but I would say I didn't always have the language for it, right? I knew I was called to build. I knew I was called to lead. I knew I was called to help people. Public speaking was something that I gravitated towards super early, from whether it's college courses on communication to, the Toastmasters journey. And just even in every job that I found myself going on the trajectory of leadership. So I always knew that, God had created something within me and called me to do these things, but I didn't necessarily have the language for that. So I would say, for me, I had to learn how to be clear, right? Um, and sometimes clarity comes through just really being obedient and taking small steps, right? It didn't mean I had all the answers. It didn't mean I had everything. It just meant that I took small steps into moving into a place of clarity. So, just allowing God to refine me, refine the message. I overcame barriers of like personal identity, like really being clear on who I am and what God had called me to be. I think there were certain times in my life that felt muffled, like it wasn't super clear. And then, sometimes just really going back to who I am and who God had called me to be. And then what problems did I find myself gravitating towards that I saw very easily or that, always stuck out to me. Like they always say the areas that God has called you to, it sticks out to you like a sore thumb, right? Everybody else might ignore it and walk away, but for some reason, that particular thing, you just have like a keen eye on that thing. So I think for me, it was really just one, I had to be super clear with who I was and who God had called me to be. And again, what problems did I come to solve? And then I just had to go through my journey of transformation and learning, right? So again, this is a big thing. Most times, you have a calling, you have a gift, but taking the time to refine that gift. And so I took time to really just train, coach. Nandra, you can attest to this. Coaching is definitely something that I prioritize, personal investment, whether it's, coaching courses, leadership courses. I've even taken, voice acting classes, right? I've taken coaching on literally how to articulate myself. I've done a lot of practice. To become a distinguished Toastmaster, you have to give a total of about 20 speeches, both at your local club and even globally, right? So I had to make myself uncomfortable and put myself in those spaces to literally train and become better at effective communication. And every opportunity that I found, whether it was in a professional setting or business, I took that opportunity. I would interview in spaces where I literally had minutes to articulate myself and why I would be the best person for that job. I had put myself in places where I would be asking my supervisors for a raise and they would be asking me why, and literally had seconds because they're walking into their office and I'm like, listen, I'm the best person because I've mastered, my craft, I would be the best person for. So again, just putting yourself in places where you give yourself the opportunity to train and grow and knowing that it doesn't have to be perfect, just taking those little steps. So I would say that's how I was able to overcome that journey.
That's amazing and that's awesome. And so what I hear is the constant need to get training and to work on yourself to become the best that you can in order to articulate what you need to be able to speak confidently, just in general. That's awesome. Ron, you've helped leaders secure partnership, resources, strategic relationships. What's the biggest mistake people make when asking for support or collaboration?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest mistake is sometimes, when we want to do something or leaders want to do, the biggest mistake is leading with what they can offer leading with what they want versus what they can offer. Again, even in our personal relationships, right? Relationships are two-way streets, and they always go like this. And sometimes, even in those collaborations, we want to lead and tell them, hey, this is what I could offer, this is what I can do, or this is what I want. So the biggest mistake I would say is leading with what you want versus whether you can offer. And sometimes, you know, and this is on me too, because when I go into those rooms, my job is to sell and to generate, revenue, but I sometimes miss the vision of that leader. And I tell them everything that I can do for them, but I don't necessarily hear what they need from me. And sometimes what they need from me may not necessarily generate a dollar, but it just allows me to just build equity. When I say equity, the equitable relationship that allows us to build future dollars. And I think those are the mistakes that people could go into a room and we talk about elevator pitches of what you can do, what you're offering. But when you're doing that, sometimes you have to take a step back and ask the person, what do they need? Right? What do they need? How do they want to be engaged? How do they want to engage? How do they want to be engaged? And how are they utilizing some of their resources today? And most times the mistake is we don't take enough information from the other party to then digest it on our own, to then utilize that information as a tool to then go back to that person and say, well, these are your issues. This is how I could solve.
Yeah, yeah, very important. And I think even for myself, I think that's something to keep in mind, to lead with what you can offer and not just talking about what you bring as well. So that's amazing. There's a question in the chat. Ron, you spoke about auditing relationships. So when you audit relationships, what physical or practical steps do you take to create distance with love if that's what is required?
That's a great question. One of my good friends told me that sometimes, even though you may love somebody, it's okay to love them from afar. And I think, when you're auditing the relationships, you just have to audit, or sometimes you have to create buckets, right? Because every relationship has its reasons, right? I have friends that I simply just, play fantasy football with, during that September to December season, and that's it, right? And that's what I get out of that. Then I have lifetime friends that we talk on a day-to-day basis because there's educational information coming out of it. And there's those friends that I love dearly, and I just can't be associated or a part of that circle on a day-to-day basis. And I think that if you identify the buckets, and your level of social capacity and what you're trying to accomplish, and I think these changes all the time, right? So your what you're trying to accomplish should dictate the relationship that you currently have in front of you, right? So if you're trying to go on vacation, in September, the individuals that should be in front of you are your vacation buddies, right? But if you're trying to build a business over the next 6 months, the individuals that should be in that bucket are influencers, business meetings, business people, of that magnitude. So I think if you identify your buckets and rotate your buckets based on the season that you're in, will help your auditing a lot better.
Yeah, that's very important and very necessary. I think we need to, as you said, it's a constant thing that we need to do on a consistent basis where we're auditing our relationships. That's amazing.
Mhm.
So this question is for both of you, and this is our last question. What is one bold ask you believe every person in this room needs to make in the next 30 days?
What was the question? Sorry.
The question is, what is one bold ask you believe every person in this room needs to make in the next 30 days?
For me, I think the bold ask is, I was listening to a podcast yesterday and they refer this to finances. Sometimes we're scared to just identify what our finances are and how much we're spending on month because we're scared to open the bank account after going out the Saturday night before because we probably spent a little bit too much money. That same intimidation that you might have with your finances, just reevaluate where you are in life, right? And take out a piece of paper. I had to do it the other day. Write out your short-term, intermediate, and long-term goals. And then once you could identify those and they're on paper, identify what you can actually tackle. And it's okay to be scared, okay to be like, damn, I'm not necessarily where I'm supposed to be because that's just human nature. That's just life. But you only get one try at it. So, be uncomfortable and identify where you are. And is that the place you really want to be? And if that's not the place you really want to be, what are you going to do to literally catapult yourself to where you want to be? And here as a speaker, I'm not where I want to be. I wrote down my goals the other day and I have a place that I want to be at, but now I have it on paper. It's here. I pray on it and I'm building a road path to that goal.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's amazing. Nini?
Yeah, I mean, I could piggyback on what Ron just stated. But I think, again, going back to writing those goals is super clear because we've talked about clarity, right? And asking God to really show you what it is that He has for you. Because I think sometimes people are struggling with where they are right now and where God sees you, right? So God has this big plan for you. He's taking you somewhere, but you're still seeing the old version of yourself. So just sit down and just pray and ask the Lord to help you clarify where you are right now and where you're trying to go. Some other practical things would be literally start to invest in yourself, invest in your gifts, right? So whether that's looking for mentorship, again, take bold steps to doing those things that you need to do. So ask for that meeting, share that vision, invite people for a collaboration session, make the call, send the proposal, like take bold action. Stop waiting for things to be perfect, because again, it's not about perfection. It's just about moving and taking action. So whatever that looks like for you, after you've written down your goals and you're super clear on what you need to do, take action. So whether that's investing in yourself, taking a coaching training, looking for a mentor, scheduling a meeting, you know, asking for help, sending that proposal, creating a meeting, a collaborative session, like take an action and just little by little, right? It's not your bold ask is not arrogance. It's literally aligning yourself to what God is calling you to do. So, just take a step and move out.
Thank you both. This was really amazing. Now, I have a question for everyone in this space, and I'm going to put it in the chat as well. And so if you have a quick response, please interact, put it in the chat. I want to, if you had complete confidence, zero fear, and all the resources you needed, where would you be and what problem would you be solving? And I'm going to repeat that again. If you had complete confidence, zero fear, and all the resources you needed, where would you be and what problem would you be solving? So think about that for a second and just put that in the chat. We're almost at time, so we're just going to start wrapping up as you put your answers in there. All right, so as you all are still thinking and putting that question in there, I'm going to just walk you through some of the things that we have. So I have a free mindset renewal session. This is really just a guided session to help you identify the obstacles that are holding you back and to help you map a pathway forward. And we're also going to put that link in the chat for you to be able to do. And this is not for everyone. And I work with just a few spots and a few people who I'm able to work with either on a one-on-one basis or on a self-guided way to be able to help you identify these limiting beliefs and to be able to work through some of those things that you need. And so that's where I come in. For staying connected with us, I will be able to send you information about the speakers and how you can also work with the speakers on a one-on-one basis. A lot of our speakers are not available to work on a one-on-one basis yet until the summer, but you can still find a way to contact them. You would be getting an email about that. How to stay connected with me. I do a lot of virtual workshops and in-person workshops. So you can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Nandra Temlong. I'm on YouTube, Nander Temlong. I post some videos on there, more to come also, and some shorts when I can. There's Nander Temlong on Facebook. There's I Exhale, which is my business on TikTok and also on Instagram as well. So stay connected. We've talked about our relationships matter, and the reason why you're staying connected, if you stay connected with the fact that you know me, you get to meet other speakers, you get to meet other people, you get to network with people as well. So please stay connected. Coming up in June, we have Step Out Boldly, the mixer that's coming up. It's a 3-day renewal experience. This is more of an in-person gathering. And this last Step Out Boldly that we had was in March, the end of March, and that was catered to more women. The mixer is inviting more men and women to this space so that we can network, so that we can share, so that we can stay connected together. This May series has just been able to break down a whole lot of different things. So please stay tuned. Next Saturday, we have the last of the series, which is Transformation and Sustainable Influence. And Maureen Osuji, who was here with us last Saturday, will be joining again. I will be talking on transformation, more of how we metamorphosis, how we become and transform into who we really need to be. And Maureen will be talking about how to sustain the change that we've sort of experienced and this influence that we are going to navigate together. So please stay tuned. I'm going to put some links in the chat as well while I wait to hear some of you's answers of if you had complete confidence, zero fear, and all the resources needed, where would you be and what problem would you be solving? I hear being in government, influencing policy, and influencing policy to transform the education sector in Nigeria. Joanna will be doing that. I can't wait to see that. Ursula will be helping parents of children on the spectrum, specifically reversing the symptoms of autism through functional medicine. I really, really, really love that. Oh, that's amazing. Can't wait to see that. Zemaye would be a comedian. She would help deliver feel-good hormones to people by providing a different way of looking at things. So similar to what I do now, but more public platform. That's amazing. Laughter is a medicine. Laughter is great for our mental health. So that's amazing. Nengi will be a global leadership coach, transforming the minds of world leaders. Absolutely. Wow, this is amazing. This is truly, truly amazing. Um, I can't wait to hear what other people want to be doing as well. But the truth is that we are a step closer to having all of the things that we need. Um, we've talked about mindset, and I'm gonna put the mindset renewal. And please, if this session was impactful for you, also share the link with other people so they can register and be there for the last one. Can't wait to see you there. The mindset renewal session link is also in there if you want to be able to just navigate a path forward and identify what is holding you back. It may not be that you're ready to work with me yet, but it may be that you just need to be able to identify that and decide on other steps that you might need to move forward. Lastly, I do have a book called Mindset: How to Break Free from the Constraint of Limiting Beliefs. I'm also going to put the link in the chat. Gift that book to people. You can also read it. It is also a way to be able to navigate this. None of this works, none of this moves or changes if we're not able to break the limiting beliefs that are holding us back, break the limiting patterns that are keeping us from achieving all of these wonderful things that you all are saying in terms of all the resources and all the things that we need, because we do have, just as you've invested time to being here, you're breaking that thing that's holding you back and building more confidence and having zero fear and all the resources that we need. The Bible said the Lord has given us everything that we need to succeed. So all of the resources that we need, we have them, or we have a close access to be able to get what we need. So all of these things that you put in the chat, all of the things that you're thinking about is possible. And I can't wait to see it achieved. So thank you all for spending the Saturday afternoon with us. Look forward to seeing you next Saturday. Thank you again. Bye, everyone.